In a small town nestled between quiet hills lived a girl named Amina. She was soft-spoken, always seen with a book in her hand and a world in her eyes. People around her barely noticed her presence, not out of dislike, but ignorance. Her parents were too caught up in their own struggles to hear the silent songs she sang. Amina's voice was like a feather, light, barely audible. She spoke mostly to her diary, not to people. She had dreams, big ones, but they were caged in a room that had no door. Every evening she watched the sky change colors and whispered to it her pain. At school, Amina was just that quiet girl. Teachers praised her grades but never asked how she felt. Classmates mocked her silence, calling it weird instead of gentle. She never reacted. Silence became her only defense. Her silence grew louder with every passing day. She tried once to speak up in class, but her voice cracked and everyone laughed. That day she learned that even trying to speak made her feel smaller. So she returned to her only friend, her diary. At home, things weren't much different. Her mother was often angry, her father too tired. Her little brother was the only one who smiled at her, but he was too young to understand the cracks in her world. She once told her mother, "I feel empty." Her mother replied, "You think too much." She told her father, "Sometimes I want to disappear." He said, "Stop being dramatic." Amina began to fade in the house she once called home. The walls heard more of her voice than her family did. She would scream into her pillow at night, only to wake up with swollen eyes. And still not a single soul asked, "Are you okay?" She drew stars on her ceiling with glow-in-the-dark stickers. She believed they listened when no one else would. Every night she'd stare at them and say, "Please hear me," but even the stars stayed silent. One day, a new teacher named Miss Sarah joined the school. She was young, kind, and had a way of noticing things others didn't. She saw Amina's quietness not as weakness but as a song unsung. She called her after class and said, "I'd love to read your writing." Amina was stunned. No one had ever asked about her thoughts. She handed over her diary pages, heart trembling. Miss Sarah read them with tears in her eyes. She said, "You have the soul of a poet." For the first time in years, Amina smiled. Miss Sarah began mentoring her privately. They would write together in the library after school. Words finally felt like wings instead of weights. But happiness, Amina learned, is fragile. Miss Sarah had to leave town after a few months due to family illness. Before leaving, she hugged Amina tightly and said, "Never stop writing." And just like that, the light dimmed again. The next few weeks felt like walking through fog. Amina stopped writing again. The words came, but hurt too much. She missed Miss Sarah terribly. She was the only one who saw her. The bullying at school worsened. "She's acting like an author now," one boy laughed. Another girl whispered, "She thinks she's special." Amina kept her head down, her diary now hidden. She wanted to scream, but silence had stitched her lips shut. She wanted someone to pull her out of the darkness, but she had learned that crying out was useless when no one listens. And so, her silence grew thicker, heavier. At home, things were no better. Her brother had grown distant, too busy with school and friends. Her parents were still busy. Her mother had taken a second job. Amina felt like a ghost inside her own house. One cold winter night, Amina stood on the rooftop. The wind was harsh, and the stars were hidden. She clutched her diary to her chest like a lifeline. And then she whispered, "Please, just one sign." She returned to her room and wrote her final entry. It was not a goodbye. It was a plea. A plea for someone to hear her silence. A plea for someone to break through the fog. The next morning, Amina didn't come to school. Her classmates barely noticed. The teacher marked her absent and moved on. But her seat, for some reason, felt colder than usual. Her brother found her diary that evening under her pillow. He read every page with trembling hands and a breaking heart. Tears streamed down as he realized how much she had suffered. He ran to their parents and shouted, "You never listened!" Amina was found in the nearby woods, unconscious, cold, but alive. She had tried to disappear, to make her silence loud enough to be heard. She was taken to the hospital, where she slept for days. Doctors said she had been emotionally exhausted for years. When she awoke, her parents were crying beside her. Her brother held her hand and whispered, "I hear you now." And for the first time, her silence broke. Not with words, but tears. Tears that spoke of pain, years of it, now finally acknowledged.
Counseling began. Healing was slow, but real. Her parents joined sessions and learned how much they had missed. Her classmates were spoken to. The school started mental health awareness programs. And Amina? She began to write again, not to escape, but to express.
She published her first book a year later. It was titled, "Her Silence Was Her Last Cry." It became a mirror for thousands of other quiet souls, and in those pages, Amina found her voice echo in the world. Moral: sometimes the loudest cries come in silence. Listen closely to those around you. Your attention could save a life.